Good morning, guys. We've got a early show going, but it's going to be a good one. This one is very special. Excuse me. I've been wanting to have this gentleman on for quite a while, and finally, our schedules have connected well enough. He's very special to me. I've he was actually I think the first SOG man that gave me the time of day, who actually spoke to me. Not only through Facebook, but also on the telephone. And I actually have a piece of history that I'll hold on to forever, along with some stuff he sent me through the mail. But this is the literal first document I took notes on from my first SOG interview with Mr. Tony Love, who is our guest today. And Mr. Tony was a Snakebite member, and he's a dual CNC recon man at CCC with RT Iowa, RT California, and he also served at CCS in 1969 with RT TACK. So we've got a very, very good story today, and I'm hoping all of you guys can join us. And yes, Alex, that is a wonderful mustache, and I made sure he didn't cut it because he was thinking he was going to cut it, but I said, if you cut that, we're going to have to wait till you can grow it back. So luckily he didn't cut it this morning. But without further ado, Mr. Tony, the floor is yours, sir.
Well, good morning, everyone. I want to make this show for you. I'm a pretty open guy, and so any kind of questions you have, anything you want to know, anything you were ashamed to ask anyone else, please feel free to ask me. Very open about my experiences. I did education for a long time, and one of the reasons I wanted to connect with Bud was because he's a young guy and he's interested in our history. He's offering it through a different medium than the books. The books are nice, and it's certainly nice for me to show up in those. But offering these kinds of things through new medium where we can tell our stories first person, as convoluted as our memories are, but at least you hear it first person. So I'm here for that, and so feel free to ask away, and I'll ask Bud's help to read the questions to me because my eyes are not so good these days, and I have a hard time reading text unless it's really close up. So thank you to Bud for having me here. And where should I start, Bud?
Wherever you feel comfortable starting in your origin story, sir.
That was a mammy-pammy. That was a mammy-pammy answer. Okay, well, I grew up in Georgia. I come from a Marshall family. My dad was in the military. All my uncles on his side were in the military. My mother's brother was killed at Bastogne. My grandmother was a nurse in World War I, as was my grandfather on my mother's side. He was a gas victim. That's how they met. And Catholic, just an old boy from Georgia, Catholic school, 12 bruising years of that. Got my girlfriend pregnant early. and then kind of saw my life. I worked for the phone company. Actually, I had a pretty good job working for the phone company, installer, repairman. And then kind of saw my life trajectory going in a certain way and didn't like that idea. And so I joined the Army. I test well. And so I qualified for officer candidate school. They put us in a bleacher for a brief at Fort Jackson. They put us in a bleacher for briefing, which we didn't know what it was. And so this small aircraft flies over, and this guy jumps out, free falls for a while, opens his parachute, lands in front of the stands, and gives us a SF recruiting speech. And man, I wanted to do that, and so I was destined to go to OCS, but because of my test scores, but I opted out of that. Immediately went to Fort Benning for jump school. Then after that, which was in last 2 weeks of July and first week of August, was pretty freaking hot. Anybody from the South knows that.
Oh, yeah.
But I was from Georgia, and so, doing 2-a-days at football practice in that Georgia heat and taking salt pills and the things you're not supposed to do. That's pretty tough. A small guy, but kind of, toughen up to the elements. Anyway, went through Special Forces training. Commo guy. I think I wanted to be a commo guy because that was the shortest way to get through your MOS training. Hated being a commo guy. Got out of training group, 7th group for a while. Bragg was just empty. There were no one was there. Everybody was in Vietnam. All we were doing was pulling, KP and post details and shit like that. And then, so I volunteered for Vietnam. And I don't know how I was just a private. So I was, PFC, I think. Got Mrs. Alexander's number. She's famous in Special Forces realm. Called her, said I wanted to go to Vietnam. She said, go tell the sergeant major I've got orders on the way, and start clearing posts. And that's what I did. So I went to Vietnam. And then I got to Nha Trang. And, I wanted to go to an A team. As much as I hated being a commo man, I would have taken that. But I kind of always wanted to be in the fight. If I was going to go to war, I wanted to be in the fight. But they stationed me in Nha Trang, and I was there for a couple of, that's me. I was in my commo bunker in Nha Trang. It's, Nha Trang was in the rear. It was Special Forces headquarters. I was doing that was called area defense. I see I'm a Spec 4. I must have got promoted. 12 hours on, 24 off, and it was like beers and whores and whatever you can do in your 24 hours off, and then 12 hours on the shift. And I hated that, man. It's like I didn't like the being near the flagpole stuff, and having a steady job, but a nice job. It was a cushy job. Anybody would have liked that. So I asked my lieutenant boss if I could go to SOG, because I was like, would see those guys in the club when they were back in the Trang, and it's kind of like a motorcycle gang. They were all like, tied together and spoke a special language, and people would tell you not to fuck with them and stuff like that. And so I was like, oh, I want to do that. Whatever those guys are doing, I want to be that guy that when you come in the club, nobody fucks with you. And so I asked my lieutenant if I could volunteer for SOG, and he said, are you sure you want to do that? And I go, yeah. He goes, well, you got to get a replacement for yourself. And I used to tell the story. I was a PFC. I see now as a Spec 4. So you know, how does somebody that low on the totem pole find a replacement that, you know, that's an impossible job. You know, I had no idea how to even go about that. But I did notice that that during the day when the radios were down, that the only thing he did was answer the switchboard, and there was about 7 calls per day that would come in the switchboard. And so I said, you know, if we could bridge another switchboard into the admin office where the clerk could answer those 7 calls a day, you wouldn't need an extra radio operator. So that's what we did, and off the saga went. CCC, or actually it was FOB2 at the time. CCC didn't come till later. Mm-hmm. So that's the beginning. What else you want to hear?
Would you just to get us in, and while the group's growing, we're still getting viewers in, would you mind just describing what it was like just first getting to Kontum, who you maybe first crossed paths with, and how you ended up getting on the team you were going to be first running recon on?
Okay. So first they took us to, I'll just,
you can go as you,
I can lead up into that story, if you will. I think it's interesting to kind of give the,
you go as you please, sir. So, absolutely.
So I volunteered for SOG. They took us to Da Nang. I didn't have a top secret clearance. So we were in Da Nang in a safe house that was, you know, there were card games going on. There was a bar in there. There were prostitutes running all over the place. It was crazy. And so I'm sitting there, and you know, I didn't know anybody. And so I'm sitting there at the bar, minding my own Spec 4 business, kind of really feeling awkward and out of place. You know, I mean, these guys, obviously, you know, except for the guys that came in with me, you know, the guys were waiting for their briefing and that kind of thing. And so there was this E5, he was a Spec 5, probably a demo guy, sitting at the end of the bar by himself, kind of hunched over his drink, and 1,000-mile stare in his eyes, and you know, nobody, you know, and everybody was like saying, don't talk to that guy, don't fuck with him. So everybody's kind of like standoffish from this guy. And so in walks a 1-star general, brigadier general, with his he had a major as an aide, and they walk in and somebody yelled "General on board," and so everybody kind of like starts standing at attention, except for this guy on the end of the bar. And then, you know, before anybody can make any, you know, drastic moves, you know, as you were, and so we all kind of like sat back down and, you know, eyeballing this general officer that's coming in there. So the major, the aide, you know, he takes a big sniff of the air. He goes, "It stinks in here." Oh. And the fucking Spec 5 on the end of the bar, man, says, "If you don't like it, get the fuck out." And I'd never heard anybody talk to a general officer like that, much less a Spec 5. And so the major kind of bucked up and like started moving forward, and the general put his hand on his shoulder and said, "Major, let's go." And they left. And I thought, oh, what the fuck have I got myself in for here, man? This is something else. This is not the Army I was just in. So then got my top secret clearance, down to Kontum, I think a C-130 down to Kontum. Somebody met me at the airport, got on base. They assigned me to, if you move the arrow where to this hooch, this right on the berm here, so if see the road that runs down the center, if you
Yes,
make
sir.
a right, you go to Kontum. If you make a left, you go to Pleiku. So go toward the Pleiku side. This side.
You said
other side.
left
Other
side.
side. Okay, now straight over across the berm there. No, other way. Other way. Well, that's my hooch right there. That's my hooch.
Oh wow. Okay, I'm gonna have to make a note of that then, right here. That's Cal. Well,
me and Bob Barnes lived together in that hooch.
So anyway, that's California's hooch.
Well,
or just yours and Bob's.
When I was with Barnes, we were on Team California, but then we ran one mission together, and then they took him off of Recon, and because he was too big. I mean, he was too big to run Recon.
And we'll definitely get into that.
But anyway, he and I bunked together, and so when they pulled him off of Recon, they didn't move him. We just continued to stay in that hooch. So anyway, they assigned me to Team Iowa with a guy named Van Hall. He was getting ready to leave. I think this was supposed to, the mission we were going on was his last mission. And before he rotated back to the States. And and a guy named Don Davidson, who was he became, he
Delta Force.
Yeah, I didn't know what combat experience Don had before I met him, but he definitely had combat experience, and he and Van Hall were, I just didn't want to fuck up. That's all I cared about. I didn't want to screw up. And, they spoke in some kind of language that I understood the words, but it was like, it was a combat shorthand that I had no idea what the fuck they were talking about. So we did a little training on the range, and then we went in on this mission. It was my first mission, and we went in with I think a 12-person team. We were in Laos. We're supposed to plant a mine on. I always said Ho Chi Minh Trail, but now I find out it's some other road. But it was a mainline road, and it was a anti-tank mine. So,
wow, yeah, guys, there's a lot of this, but before we go on, I didn't get to mention it at the beginning, but Joe Parnar's latest book is absolutely wonderful, focusing on FOB2 from 68 to 69, which was when Tony was there. And he has mentioned literally the first story and then maybe the third or fourth story on a lot of this, Iowa and California. But
right. And I might point out that Robert Dumont is also an author in that book, and he's
absolutely
he and I've been speaking. He's a historian, and he and I've been speaking for many years.
And he, as a matter of fact, I apologize I left out his name, but he's also got several books he's written himself that are absolute page turners that I recommend people look. But this book also is the complete history of CCC or FOB2, CCC, and Task Force E2, whatever it became at the end. I always get those mixed up, but Mr. Tony is as well mentioned in this. So those two are great CCC books to get now and start looking into. But How would you like to continue, Mr. Tony? Would you like to? Oh, first off, before we get any further, you've got to show off your accessories for today on your wrist. That I had to say. I told people about your Montagnard bracelets and all that. Folks are already starting to mention about your yard bracelets.
Well, I have to say that the bracelets are actually recent acquisitions. I had mount yard bracelets, and somehow they got lost and missing. And so I had some friends that were my neighbors actually were going to Vietnam, and they were going to stop at Kontum. And so they asked me, could they give me anything? And I said, absolutely. And I showed them pictures of mountain yard bracelets. So they went to the local tribe, told them what I wanted, and came back with these, which I treasure. So these are not authentic. They're authentic mountain yard bracelets, but they're not authentic from the time. And then, of course, I always wear a Rolex watch. Just
got to as a SOG man and
I
a
love
green
Rolex. I've always loved Rolex. Bob Barnes had two Rolexes.
Oh,
he had a
wow.
gold Rolex, and then he had a Submariner that he wore to the field. And
wow.
I always kind of like, you look up to people, and I always looked up to Bob Barnes.
He's going to be coming up here later. We're definitely going to want to hear about his wild antics while you were running with him. Would you like to go into more of your first mission and then take some
questions?
Why
don't I just finish that story up? And okay. So because I had, we jumped off the helicopter. I was carrying the radio, which in retrospect, I don't think was a good idea. I mean, I was a radio guy and I knew how to operate radios, but being a new guy and having, I wouldn't let a new guy carry the radio these days if I had to do over again. Anyway, so I had the radio. Nobody liked to carry the heavy load. That's the thing. It was heavy. So we get in one day and we're walking. We were moving kind of slow. We get in early. It was early morning insert. We moved kind of slow. I was amazed how 12 people can be so quiet, although I was having trouble doing that myself. We came up on these two square or rectangular bunkers, no cover, but they were just, rectangular holes, really squared off well next to this open field. So we kind of assumed it was LZ watchers that weren't there. It wasn't the LZ we came in on anyway. And so, Van Hall planted some topopper mines in those. But that was the first time I kind of got an idea that, this wasn't Fort Bragg anymore. And this is not fucking Pineland anymore. There are real people out here, and there are real people out to get you, And so it kind of like, it was an epiphanal moment for me because, and then it dawned on me, I had all the training in terms of, raids and ambushes and the training there at Kontum on the range. But then it dawned on me, I went, this is like hunting. This is, I've done this before. This I know how to hunt, so this is like hunting. And so things kind of shifted. So, instead of being worried about fucking up and those kinds of things, I started like going, okay, concealment, move slow, work up on the game, don't do anything stupid. And And we came up to the top. I remember it was a steep valley. We went down this hill and then hit this valley, and it was a sharp valley, and up the hill. And then we were on top of the hill, and it was the hill. If you went down the other side of the hill, that's where the road was, and that's where we were going to plant the mine. So we were coming up with a plan. And we were going to stay here till dark, and Van Hall and the Mountain Yard team leader will go down, and plant the mine on the road. We'll pull security out and then come back up and then get the fuck out of here. And so as we're like, in kind of a circle almost, coming up with this plan, you heard of a bunch of Vietnamese yelling down in where the road was. A lot of yelling. And so Van Hall looked at the interpreter and he said, what are they saying? And he said, I remember, they say they come kill us. And so Van Hall said, let's get the fuck out of here. So we went back down the same way we came up, back down the valley and up to the other side. And then when we got to the other side, it's thick jungle. And when we got to the other side, just below the ridge line, they started taking pot shots at us. And Van Hall told me to get Leghorn up, which was a relay site. So I kept calling Leghorn. I remember our call sign was Lockjaw. Leghorn, this is Lockjaw. Leghorn, Lockjaw. Nothing. And we're running to get to some cover because there was some rocks over there. And then they started to open up pretty heavy. About 3 feet from the rocks, Lockjaw, I get Lockjaw. I mean, I'll get Leghorn. Leghorn, we're in trouble, in contact, some air support, whatever the fuck I was saying. And they responded back, get Covey up. So, but if I took one step away from where I was, I lost contact. Behind the rocks, I couldn't get contact. So I had to come back out and stand in that fucking spot and talk to Leghorn till I was sure I got air assets on the way. But then, then it was pretty much for us, it was over because we ended up spending the night, but they worked the A1Es on that bunch down there. And I think we counted 52 secondary explosions during the night. And it was a hell. And then we came out on strings the next day. I mean, that's my first mission, coming out on fucking strings. What the fuck?
What a first mission. I mean, not only to come out on strings, but I mean, there you are, first mission, reconning and going to be planting mines and on the road and all that. I mean, and you had mentioned earlier, I don't know if you mentioned it or if I had forgotten, but wasn't there a small issue about the radio volume there at the beginning?
Yeah. Well,
another reason you didn't
I
want to
had
carry.
I had the radio and the headset. Yeah, okay. When we first went in, I had the radio and the headset. And so, there's helicopters flying and, we're on the ground and leaves and shit and crap's blowing all over the place so you can't hear anything. And so I had the volume like turned all the way up. And then so Van Hall said, tell them we're okay. And so I said in normal voice, okay, Covey, we're okay. And then fucking Covey comes up, we're okay, whatever the fuck he said. Van Hall was like, his eyes were fucking slapping the shit out of me and turn down. So, then I turned it down and had it on squelch. But, that's one of those details you just don't fucking You don't know
No,
to do. You don't know. Yeah, I
you
do
don't know
know to
what you
do.
don't know.
I don't know what I don't
Exactly.
know.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah, but
And another good reason, exactly why you said, new guys don't need to carry the radio.
yeah. Anyway,
And Mr. Blah got into a good deal of it yesterday about the significance of the RTO on the ground and a recon team. You know, the 1-0 runs the show, no doubt, but when the poo-poo hits the fan, the man with the radio is speaking to Covey, Leghorn, whoever they've got, so they're de facto running the show. You know, so
well, the mission I was on with Barnes, I'd never run with Barnes before. I was on one mission, and he took the radio from me. He we traded packs because he wanted to talk to the air assets.
and there's a
I thought
few.
was smart.
Absolutely, and y'all, that's another one that we're gonna want you to get into.
Whatever you
And
want, man.
there were numerous 1-0s that actually preferred carrying the radio, which is quite strange. You know, I mean, most of them would delegate it down, but there were a few that I think Pappy Webb actually carried his own as well for a while. Tim Schaff did. Some of the up north guys did. So it wasn't all that rare.
I think that's smart. Either the 1-0
One
or the
one
experience
one.
1-1.
Absolutely.
The new guy, this is all retrospect, man. It's 50 years ago, for Christ's sakes.
Yeah, yeah. Would you mind, since we're on the I know we're jumping a little bit ahead going from Iowa to California, but would you mind, before we get into some questions and sharing a bit, would you mind sharing that crazy mission of Mr. Bob with you
Bob?
and Mr. Bob? Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to pull up a picture of Bob.
Yeah. The guy standing next to is Marshall T. Hall, another good guy, and I'm about his size. I'm against Barnes. I'm about Marshall's size, so you can imagine if Barnes had ever gotten hit or couldn't move, it was going to be it was going to be tough getting that out of there. And the silver star he's wearing is for the mission that I'm about to describe.
You're if you, before you get into that about his size, if you wouldn't mind saying the little joke you said to him about him getting.
I know. It kind of wasn't a joke. I mean, I told him if he got hit, I was going to take his Rolex and leave him behind, or either I was going to have to cut him up in man portable loads. He's a big guy. He's a big guy.
Oh,
but
yeah,
he's agile guy. He was very agile.
And y'all are about to hear that. So absolutely, sir, if you wouldn't mind sharing that mission, that is a hell of a mission.
Well, the lead up to that is that after that first mission, Van Hall left, and I ran with Davidson on Team Iowa we ran some missions. And then he went to Covey. He went to fly Covey. And so that left me as the 1-0 of Iowa. And so officially I was the 1-0, but I never ran any missions with Iowa as a 1-0. I got a 1-1. They sent me a 1. They sent me a 1-1, and he when we were set for a mission. I think it was a wiretap. We were on the blocks for a wiretap mission, and so they brought the new guy in. He was an E6, and I was just an E5 at the time, and then another commo guy, and I told him the mission, and we talked about it, and he didn't like that idea, and so he went down and got a job in the commo shack. And then the next guy they gave me kind of kept, a comedy of errors. He kept blowing himself up with, blasting caps and, that kind of stuff. And so I didn't, they sent me 2 1-1s and neither one of them worked out. And I was kind of sitting around. And then from what I understand, Barnes wanted to run some recon and talk somebody into it. And so they put me with him and gave us this mission. And I was glad to be with Barnes because I was a way better 1-1 than I was a 1-0. My tales of being the 1-0 are like comedy of error stuff. Like, shooting people's foot off.
We'll definitely have to get into that.
I was a way better, I after a while in my life, I decided that I was number 1 at being number 2.
You did do good as 1-0, but you were a damn good 1-1. That's
you
for
weren't
sure.
there. You
Well, from what I've heard, I'll say from what I've heard, you were damn good 1-1. And there's Big Bob.
Like I said, I am a good 1-1. 1-0. Ask anybody that ran with me. It didn't go well.
May have to get Mr. Mike to testify to that.
Mike's missing toes because of me, man.
We're going to get into that later, maybe, hopefully. But could you explain, as we're going into the mission, was this around this time? It looks like he's got a camouflage. I don't even know what that is.
I've not seen that picture until recently. I have no idea where it was taken or what was going on. But you can see how big this guy is. He was rumored to have played center for the Boston Patriots. I don't know that that's so true. He might have been on a practice team or something like that. But the fact that he's big enough to play that position for a professional team lets you know just how big he is.
Oh, yeah. The number I think I've got in, again, Uncommon Valor, guys, if you want to read all about these men, this is a great book. I think they had him at 6'3", 240 or 255 or something like that. And that could have been an easy, like you said.
Looks like he weighs more than that in that picture.
I was about to say, he looks pushing 265, maybe 270. Big old boy. Big boy.
Yeah.
But the floor is yours to continue.
So put Barnes and I together right away. I liked him. He was like he was an E7, big guy. He liked to skirt the rules. He knew places to go downtown that I had no idea they even existed. He was into like Vietnamese food. He was like educating me on the nuance because he was into food, and educating me on the nuances of Vietnamese cuisine. And I remember one time I asked him, "What is this meat?" He goes, "Don't ask."
Just enjoy it.
Yeah. So. And the officers didn't fuck with him, and being my 1-0, that meant the officers weren't going to fuck with me either. And so I remember one day he's walking across the compound,
yes,
and he didn't have his hat on, and I think it was a major, Sergeant Barnes, aren't you afraid your head's gonna get sunburned? Trying to tell him that in a non commanding way that he needs to put his hat on. He goes, "It never happened, Major. My hair's too fucking long." He'll leave him sitting there. He doesn't know what to say after that. Or he would sit in the bar next to this fan, and the fan would blow, and his freaking hair is blowing out. In this officer's face. He's good, and a big handlebar mustache.
I was about to say,
this is not in honor of him. I kind of like the helicopter pilots. They always kind of like wore these handlebars. I was envious of them, getting away with that stuff. And Barnes got away with it, obviously. So anyway, Barnes wanted to go in. I can't remember what the mission was exactly. It might have been an area recon. We always had a secondary mission, a prisoner snatch. So he wanted to go in last light. I didn't fucking like going in at last light. We argued about it a bit, because you go in last light and it gets dark, you can't get out, and you're in contact, you're fucked, So, but he liked that. Blah, blah, blah. He had his reasons, and finally, I go, okay, last light it is. And still scared shitless of that. And so, so we go in last light, 6 of us, 4 yards, and Barnes and I was carrying the radio. Get on the ground. Everything, all the choppers get away. Things settled down. We did a circle of the LZ. We found some grass that was kind of mashed down. We thought it might have been, LZ watchers, but it was probably some animals that we didn't know, but we were still careful. Trying to find a place to, we call them RON, or remain overnight. Tried to find us a RON, and we found one. And pretty freaking non-eventful. And then next day we get up, and I remember we traveled down into this valley, and it was stinky, marshy valleys. Water. It was not water. It's kind of muddy. You know how that goes. You know how it is. It's just collects on the bed and the rotten leaves, and it just smelled bad. And we found a boot print. And so we took pictures of it. And then we climbed up this fairly steep hill. And we get to the top, and there's this whole complex up there. There's a zigzag trench. It's a sniper platform made out of bamboo. A couple of bunkers. And like a long command trench. So, but it was all out in the open because the vegetation had died. I guess probably from overuse. So we milled around up there for a while, took pictures. Barnes drew a sketch of it. And then we proceeded on, and then we heard some Vietnamese talking and numbers. Mike Hope Ba Bong, and so I think it was. I know it was Barnes and I, but I think it was Barnes and I. I think it was just me and Barnes. We creeped down to the to where we're hearing the voices, and there's these 2 guys. One of them's a radio operator. The other guy's got a crank generator, and he's cranking it. And I know how that works. Barnes gives a signal to withdraw, so we kind of creep back, and we go up on top of the hill, and he says, "We're gonna catch a fucking prisoner, man." So he says, "Man, if we catch a radio operator, those motherfuckers know everything. They'll be shoveling metals out of us from this morning." I was like, holy shit! I'm not thinking about any metals. I'm thinking, how the fuck are we get? And so free trip to Taiwan. And so So we said that we called for air assets. We told them we're going to catch a prisoner. Called for air assets, and they said no. We have a team in trouble. Hang tight. We'll let you know when it's a go. So while we were hanging tight, we built that that complex up on top as a defensive perimeter. Barnes put out claymores, and we figured out, if we catch these guys, if there's a radio operator, got to be more guys. So we just figured we're going to have to make a fight. And but we didn't think we were going to make a long fight, which it ended up being. Anyway, we set it up and put, and then it was, we took the whole, so we set it up. We put 2 yards in 2 of the two yards each in 2 of the bunkers. Barnes and I were defending the main command bunker, as he and I were in that bunker. So we teamed up. We started crawling back down where we saw the guys. We get to go. All right. Team's out of trouble. I remember the code word for prisoner was dime. He said, "Go get your dime." And I said, "Oh man, okay, Barnes, we got to go." He says, "All right, let's go." And so got the team. Reap down. The plan was, going to be me and Barnes and the Mountain Yard team leader. We're going to jump these motherfuckers, and then we're going to kill the juicer, and then we're going to overwhelm the radio operator. So then we're going to and then move them back to the top of the hill and get exfil. So we get down there, they weren't there, so I didn't know where the fuck they were. And so so we start pulling back. So I assumed that we were going to go and dismantle our defensive perimeter. So as we're moving back, I kind of looked over, and there was this fucking poncho hooch with a small fire and a little fire going up, and there was a guy standing next to it with his AK leaning up against a tree. And I looked at it, and then I kind of looked up and started looking, and there were freaking poncho hooches everywhere. There were a shitload of fucking poncho hooches. And so I pointed, I showed Barnes, and so Barnes said, "Well, we got air on the way. Let's fuck these guys up." So we got online, and the guy that was the nearest to us with the AK on the tree, he kind of saw us, and his eyes got wide, and he went for his AK, and I popped him, and then all hell broke loose. So everybody's fucking spraying automatic down into the valley. Barnes started throwing some fucking grenades, and I threw a grenade. It didn't go anywhere as far as Barnes did. So I kept handing him mine. Anyway, so we fired it up, went back on top of the hill and said, "Okay, come get us." And so we're still in Pleiku fueling up. Hey, let me make a meta comment. Could you go off screen for me, because your motions are distracting me? Is that okay, bud? Can I make?
Yes.
There you go.
Yeah.
Because when you move around,
absolutely. Go. Absolutely. Go on.
So okay, thanks.
You're good.
so and then we started getting some fire back, so we moved on the top of the hill, and they were tentative with us at first, and they started, they're play cool, so we knew we weren't going to get any air assets anytime soon. So then we got a big rush. We got a big charge. Barnes was blowing off those fucking claymores, and it looked like they were like running right into them. I mean, they were like, sent them to screaming and hollering and shit, and we survived that first wave. Mountain yards were doing great. They were fucking kicking ass from the bunkers. I was throwing them some of my magazines. So I think I jumped out of the bunker because I kept thinking that they might be coming around from that steep side that we had come up. So I got out of the bunker and I threw some grenades down in the valley. Didn't get anything. Didn't hear any hollering or anything like that. So we got another wave, and we were piling those motherfuckers up, and so that stopped, and we were getting low on ammo then. We were like running out of, and I didn't think we were going to survive another wave, especially another wave like the last one. So I called Covey and I said, "Man, you got, it's either now or never, man. You guys got to get the fuck down here." And he said, "Well, I got he says, I got 6 rockets. I can give you 4 of those." And I said, "Give us the 4 fucking rockets, So, so he said, "Where do you want them?" And I said, "I want them, I said, want them in that valley down there. I want them where they are." So it was like a little, where the poncho hooches were. And I want them down there. So he does a big rollover, and he comes down, and he does this pass he's going straight down into the valley. And then he pulls up, no rockets, pulls up. He was receiving fire. He pulls up, and then the rockets go off, and they go off way off into the distance. And so I said he had a hang fire. So he says, "I only have 2 more rockets I can give you." So I said, "Well, please, God." So makes another pass, hit those white phosphorus down there. Man, they were like hollering and screaming and shit down there. And it was like they were in a big hustle and bustle going on down there. So by that time, we started getting some air assets on board and working the gunships with their rockets and their miniguns. And this was in Cambodia, so we didn't have any fast movers. We couldn't. That was, couldn't have any A1Es or any of that kind of air support. We could only have helicopter support. So worked the gunships for a while. Then they're going to come in and pull us out on strings from the top of that hill. And came in, dropped the strings. Me and all the mountain yards knew how to do this because we'd all done it before. Barnes had not done it before, I don't think. So they dropped the strings, and then it's 2 loops and a waistband. So since I'm a small guy, what I like to do is I like to throw the waistband over myself and have it on top of my web gear as an extra safety, and then kind of step into the legs, to the leg straps. But that's not the way you're supposed to do it. You're supposed to put the whole waistband and the legs all like a pair of pants and pull it up and then cinch it up. But, small people can do that. So Barnes was trying to to do. He watched me put on mine, and then he tried to do it the same way. So he flops the freaking waistband over his stuff and is on his web gear. But he's such a big guy, he can't get the freaking leg loops over his feet. So he got one over, and he couldn't get the other. The other one was like stuck where the heel of the boot comes out. It was stuck right in there. It wouldn't go forward, wouldn't go back. So finally, I just kind of like he was laying on his back, and I just kind of like started shoving his foot with my shoulder, and I got the thing over his foot. Meantime, the helicopter pilot's screaming, "Let's get the fuck out of here! Let's get the fuck out of here!" And so I gave them the go. They pulled us out. I don't remember where they dropped us, but they dropped us at some A camp, and they had a ring of mount yards catching us, because you sling around under the helicopter, and had a ring of mount yards trying to catch us. And Barnes was bowling those fuckers over, man. He was like, it looked like he was bowling. But that was a hairy mission. That was a good mission. Barnes got a silver star for that. I got a bronze star for that.
So y'all, I was sadly under the assumption that y'all actually got the radio operator out. Y'all did not get the radio.
Fuck no.
Okay, I had my stuff mixed up here. I thought y'all actually managed to. I thought I was under the assumption Bob had gotten one over his shoulder and y'all hauled ass to the LZ, but I had gotten mixed up. Y'all were
I don't know if I would have
gunning.
survived a week in Taiwan with Bob Barnes.
I love that. God,
I made it out of that mission, but I don't know if I could survive a whole week with Bob Barnes in Taiwan.
What a man. And when y'all finally get back, was this, did y'all decide, or did Bob decide, was this the last operation Bob would be going on, or?
I think that was decided by the people in the bosses. It could have been, it could have been really bad if he had gotten hit and couldn't move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, none of us would probably made it out, because I joke about it, but I wasn't gonna leave him. So
it would have taken all of y'all literally to try and get.
It's just too much to ask of a team. He's freaking good in the woods.
Absolutely, size just played against him.
If he gets hit, he becomes a pretty big liability.
And what's going on from there after y'all get? Do y'all get a little bit of rest, or are y'all immediately?
Well, they pulled Bob Barnes off immediately, and then
Mm-hmm.
I think they gave me a 1-1, and I think I ran one mission with California with that 1-1, and
I wonder if that was Spec 4 Angster that blew his hand up.
Angster was the 1-1 that they were trying to get. Was the one that was blowing himself up.
Okay.
From Team Iowa.
Yes, sir. That's
Team
what
Iowa.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's what I
But
thought.
I mean, the thing is that when I was at Kontum, there were all the legends that were there. I mean, like Bob Howard was there, Zabatowski was there, Pappy Webb, all the at
Joe Walkers
at FOB2.
and
all of
the legends,
the
so to
now
speak.
legends of Recon were there. It's like I was in my historical interview at the SOAR 2019. I said, for a long time, I said, I didn't feel like I was like a real song guy. It's like I was just faking it. I was just lucky, kind of thing.
Wow.
But and it wasn't until some of these books started coming out, that I started reading other people's stories. Like fucking Nick Brookhausen, he's funny. He's the funny shit, like
I compare.
I've killed a fucking monkey too, man. I've been in an all-day firefight.
Be getting into some of the CCS exploits, and Nick is. I like to say Nick is the Hunter Thompson of SOG writing with his 2 books. He's got a very unique style of writing that I like with his books. He's a very interesting character, to say the least.
He is a character.
And I mean, and like you said, with the men you were surrounded with, Uncommon Valor, literally the title is the Recon Company that earned 5 medals of honor and included America's most decorated Green Beret, alluding to Bob Howard. And some of the questions that have already built up are going to be dealing with some of the men you were surrounded with.
Joe Walker took over California after I left.
I was about to say, weren't you actually the last 1-0 before Joe took?
Yeah.
Wow, that's historic right there. I mean, and he held it for he held it for.
He's another legend, and Kettenberg, all those guys. Phil Brown,
Terry Cadenback, yes, Mr. Phil Brown. We've got stories on him. Would you like to cover any more of CCC, or would you like to maybe dip into CCS and take some questions from CCC? How would you like to go on with the?
I'm fine doing either. The difference between FOB2 and CCS to me was drastic.
Absolutely.
Not in any professional manner, but it was a completely different culture, organizational culture. And most of the guys at CCS were my age, whereas most of the guys at FOB2 were, like I said, these legends: Zabatowski, Bob Howard, and I don't let my voice. These guys are heroes to look up to, and they work through heroes. It was my honor to be there. I was like, I don't know how I got so lucky to be in that piece of history.
It's amazing, and I mean, from we'll have to get you to speak about the Snakebite teams as well. But I mean, for you to go from CCC, and like you just mentioned, all of the legends down there at CCC, but you also went to CCS and were amongst amazing recon men. And I say it, and some of the other veterans will say it, and I'll say it, because CCS was the redheaded stepchild of SOG. That y'all have a tight brotherhood because of the adversities y'all faced. Team struck a number of men that could go across the border, lack of air power. So y'all were really up against the wall in a certain aspect.
Well, the way I see it is that the missions were different. My best missions were at CCS, I thought, in terms of the mission of SOG, gathering intelligence. I think because at CCN and FOB2 or Command and Control Central, you had, even if you were in Cambodia and you called a Daniel Boone emergency, you could get fixed wing air essays. They didn't like to do it, but they would do it.
Okay.
Whereas at CCS, you didn't get that. If the helicopters didn't do the job for you, you were fucked. And it's one thing knowing you can napalm a whole bunch of sons of bitches, but it's another thing to like, okay, and so like paltry, but the miniguns and rockets are paltry, but compared to cluster bombs
fast movers
and cluster bombs and napalm, all that business. Give me that anytime, man.
Absolutely. Would you care to mention what what it was like, or how you got the word that you were going to be going down south?
Well, I left after my tour was over in November '68. I went first group, Okinawa. So got the first group. I think I brought my wife and my kid over after the first of the year. So it was January '69. I heard a rumor. Oh yeah, that's me. Hey. That was a good group. So we went back. That snakebite went back in March of '69. So I left in November '68. So 4 months later, I was back at CCS with the snakebite team.
Wow.
I heard a rumor that they were looking for guys to go to SOG with experience. I went in and volunteered. My wife wasn't happy about that, but I bought my first Rolex with my TDY money.
Do you happen to still have it with you, or still?
No, man, that's long. That's long. It was a GMT Master. It had the red and the
blue and the
bezel.
Beautiful, the Pepsi head. Wow,
yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah. I think I gave that to. Might have traded it for a parachute. I think I traded it for a Para Commander. I think I traded it for a parachute.
Oh wow, good trade then. Nonetheless, you got some work out of that one then, I'm sure.
So they did kind of like an abbreviated 1-0 school. That part of it was in Okinawa, and then since we all had recon experience, we didn't have to do the FTX. We didn't have to go to the field down there at Long Time, but we flew into Long Time, stayed in Long Time. That's where that picture was taken, in Long Time near Saigon. And then I wanted to go back to Kontum. I loved Kontum. It was so familiar to me. And I don't know why they sent me to Ban Me Thuot. I guess because a lot of the older guys wanted to go to Kontum, and I was just a buck sergeant. So me and Moose Monroe and Mike Pelaez and I were assigned as a team, and there were 2 other 3-person teams that took over. That's Moose on the right, and Mike Pelaez in the middle. That was our Mount Yard team leader. I think his name was Woot, W-O-T, and that's me.
Looking
good. Looking good. I'm always smiling in these pictures because they're all post-mission pictures.
Came out alive. No better reason to be smiling and enjoying yourself.
I always like to get away with something, so it always felt like I got away with something. So anyway, they assigned us to Team TACK. We didn't know these mountain yards. We didn't hire them. They hired them for us. We kind of complained about that a little bit, but it was what it was. And so we trained with them a little bit, and then we did a local mission with the team, and they were green, man. They're pretty green, but they're, you know, any mountain yard is good in the woods. So even though they were kind of green as far as Recon was concerned, they were good enough at the time. So we ran a local. They told us, you know, they gave us radio contact and stuff. They weren't freaking listening. We ran up on 2VC. We shot them up. We called for support. Nobody came. Nobody listened. We walked back into base the next day.
My goodness.
So anyway, they sent us on our first mission. It was out of the southern launch site down at Quan Loy, we decided that since Pelaez didn't have any experience at all, first mission we were going to run was just Moose and I, and 4 yards, and that's what we did. But Pelaez came down there with us, came down to Quan Loy with us. I hated Quan Loy because they would rocket the place all the time, and I was always glad to get to the field when I was at Quan Loy. So anyway, so we go on. They sent us on our first mission. Drop off in the LZ. We were moving slow. I remember the foliage was about chest high, so and it was easy to move through. So it was about chest high, and it was just kind of like moving through a flower field kind of thing. You know, it's just like you would part in front of you, so to speak. And then our point man gave us to get down. So we all like squatted down. These 3 guys come riding by on 3 NVA come riding by on bicycles. And so Moose asked me, what do you think we should do? I said, well, we know, because our LZ was down there and there was no trail that crossed it, or we didn't cross the trail. So I knew that trail had to end down there somewhere. And so I said, well, I think that trail ends down here. So let's set up a freaking ambush and catch one of these motherfuckers as a prisoner. And so we set up. We had a guy set up on the trail, regular ambush style. We had 2 guys out on the trail. We'll call it north and south security, and 1 to our rear, and we were on the trail. I was going to initiate the ambush by killing the first guy. The Mountain Yard team leader was going to kill the 3rd guy, and Moose was going to jump out and overwhelm the middle guy. And then we were going to, you know, since we'd already killed that guy, we were going to support him in that. So, well, sure as shit, here they come. So first guy got even with me, and I popped him off. And then the Mountain Yard team leader shot the 3rd guy, and then Moose made a charge for the 2nd guy, and the Mountain Yard team leader stepped on the trail and just like buttered them all up. And it was just like, you know, if we'd have had another week or 2 with them, that wouldn't have happened. We'd have got a prisoner on our first fucking mission in CCS. Fucking kills me that we didn't catch that prisoner, man. So, you know, search the bodies. We should have brought one of those bicycles out with us, but we didn't. And then we started, you know, then we got air assets, and they pulled us out. And so I remember we got back to the launch site, and Pelaez was there, and he said, "Is that blood on your pants, man? Is that blood on your pants?"
Did y'all ever
Yeah.
find out with the were the bicycles just transport, or were they carrying
No, they were
supplies?
riding.
Look,
And I'm sure they
just right.
used them for transport at some point or other, but they were just riding. What happened is that they probably heard the helicopter come in, and they sent a group down to check it out.
Was
Yeah,
this
this
that?
is. I think this is. I always kid Doc Quackenbush about photobombing our post mission photo. I think that's.
Photobombing before it was cool.
I think that's after. Then you notice Pelaez is with us, and he started running with us after that, pretty on a regular basis.
It's a great photo.
Yeah, that was a good team. That was a good team, man. We ran a lot of missions, some really good missions out of CCS. Most of the guys at CCS were my age. A lot of them were smoking pot. There was no pot at Kontum, and the only time I smoked pot at Kontum was like they sent me to Leghorn and as punishment and for getting drunk. And there was some guys up there from the 4th Division. I don't even think they knew they were in Laos. They ran recon along the border, and so yeah, that's Tom Cunningham and I. So one of the 4th Division guys said to me, "Do you smoke?" And I go, "Yeah, I smoke Winston." And Cunningham from New York goes, "He's not asking you about that, man. He's asking you to smoke pot." And I go, "Well, I never have, but hell, I'm in Laos, on a mountaintop in Laos. Might as well give it a try." And, so right away I knew I liked it. I liked that way better than alcohol. But I didn't smoke hardly ever after that. I mean, that was just, except when I got to CCS, and it was kind of part of the culture down there.
I get asked that a lot. Oh, and that actually reminds me when you tell that story of getting off Leghorn about smoking, and you saying I smoke Winston's, and they're like, "No, man." They're asking, "Are you cool?" Like Apocalypse Now,
right,
or
yeah.
and they're asking
Like I
if you
said,
get
I was
high,
just an
man.
old boy from Georgia, Like,
Yeah, and just crossing into a whole new world. Yeah, I get that question a lot, and I'm glad you prefaced by saying, yeah, guys, like I told y'all, this is the guy to ask. Y'all, y'all are not embarrassed, but y'all messaged me saying y'all don't know if it's appropriate or what to ask questions.
ask anything you want.
This is the guy to ask, and as you just heard, he brought up the forbidden topic of marijuana in SOG, and as you can see, it was in SOG. So, and as a matter of fact, guys, if y'all don't know, one of the first books under the before the classification went through, CCN David Maurer wrote a wonderful book, The Dying Place, where he mentions about taking LSD and smoking pot on a regular basis. So,
I don't know that it didn't go on at Kontum, but it was. I never saw it. Never had access to it. Not on the compound. I didn't know anyone on the compound that smoked it, and I had never seen it or smelled it. So
I've heard
I don't think it went on at FOB2, but we sure did smoke pot at Ban Me Thuot.
I've definitely heard some stories from some of the guys at CCC that said they did, but not on the compound, because on the compound, several guys had gotten caught at some point, and some of the team leaders bitched, and it was basically said, if you get caught with anything, you're out of SOG, you might be out of SF, and you're gone. So that pretty much
man, it was
put the
like very
kibosh.
conservative views that I have to say that I had them myself for a while. I mean, it's like, I didn't know anything about marijuana. Like I said, I'm an old boy from Georgia. I don't even think I'd heard of it. You know what I mean? If I'd heard of it,
And it's and especially at that point in time, and here in Georgia, and just like in Alabama, I mean, it's still a it's lightening up, so to speak, but it's still a very conservative culture. So I can only imagine. I mean, you got to meet new people in the Army and come into that kind of stuff. So
yeah. Well, I don't want to take time talking about that or that issue.
Oh,
Not a
it's
big
fine.
deal, so.
Did you want did you have anything else before we got into some questions and stuff about CCS you'd like to speak about? Personally, that you'd like to get out or share on?
Well, I can tell some mission stories, but let's see what questions we get.
Okie dokie. We've mentioned a few, but here's one for very early on. What year/month did you first get in country into Vietnam?
November 1967.
November of 1967. And that was when you were you were in a train working still, correct?
Right.
Correct.
I
Okay.
spent 2 or 3 months, 4 months there. I can't remember exactly. So only part of my tour, my first tour was at FOB2.
Excellent. All right. Lone Wolf has to say, how did you first find out about SOG?
Well, like I said, they were there were whispery stories about, oh, they do stuff, and and like I said, they would come into the when they come to the 5th Group headquarters for whatever reason and go to the club, they always hung out with each other. People would, whisper behind their hands, don't fuck with those guys. Like I said, it was like some motorcycle club that you was there, and you knew not to make not to make plaques. So yeah, and the rumors were they were really doing combat stuff, whatever that was. And so, yeah, I wanted that, man. I wanted, just like when I saw that guy jump out of the airplane.
What's
better than that?
Absolutely. I mean, that's amazing still that, and of course later on guys already knew what SOG in 70, 71 going in. But it's amazing still that fairly early on, y'all, the rumor mill was pretty accurate and on and y'all knowing about SOG like that. That's very interesting. I've always found that to be interesting. The rumor mill working its magic. Jason Holmes would like to know, you did speak about Bob, but was Bob there at the time and any interactions with Bob?
Oh, absolutely. Bob Howard was at the time an E7, Sergeant First Class. And I think he was awaiting, this is one of his Medal of Honor recommendations. I think this is one that he did not get, but he was awaiting the decision on that. So they had him running the supply room. And, sweet guy. He was just such a nice guy and friendly. And he would say, well, what target are you on? And you tell him your target, and he goes, oh yeah, okay, make sure you take an extra canteen of water because the water is scarce there, and it's pretty hot there. You take extra ammo. He'd give you advice on stuff, and so he was just a really nice guy. Yeah, really sweetheart. I'm sure some people that trained under him at Bragg wouldn't say that, but he was a hell of a guy. Yeah, I mean, beyond his medals and his military history, I mean, just a fine human being.
Salt of the earth, as we would say down south.
Yeah.
And I mean, and tying on to some of the guys you said he trained, and a lot of people don't realize, but he was in was teaching Ranger school for a while, but he also put some of the gentlemen that passed away during the Black Hawk Down situation. He actually trained Gary Gordon and the other gentleman, but he had some close ties with some of the modern heroes, so to speak. So just a legendary man. Jason, again, did you have any House 10 fun?
I didn't. I always thought I think that the safe house in Da Nang was house 6.
22.
Was it 22?
22.
My memory. I'm old, man. But I used to say house 10 because house 10 had a reputation, and I didn't say it because of any status reason. I just thought that the safe house in Da Nang was house 10. I left Special Forces in early '73, and so I worked in different areas after that. And so SOG was classified. I knew it would always be classified, and so in my mind, I just kind of like forgot about it. I went into administration and into administration, and so no one in administration, hardly anyone in administration had combat experience, and the few that did, didn't talk about it, and so I mostly forgot about SOG, kind of put it out of my mind, and didn't even realize it had been declassified until like 1998. Just wasn't in my, I didn't know about the Soldier of Fortune magazines, and I saw it. I saw a SOG symbol in a movie once, and thought it was funny that it was there, but I didn't know that, but the patch was common, but I didn't know that the missions had been declassified. So wow. I was kind of in the dark about it.
Wow, it's funny
as of late, and had forgotten a lot. There's my memory. Like there was a mission in CCS where we, I don't remember, Pelaez was with it. No, it was just Moose and I, where we found this road and we laid up on the road. There's like heavy traffic, and counted 53 2.5 ton trucks and a lot of armament and rice and soldiers on foot and a lot of stuff, and then we then our team quit on us. They didn't want to have anything to do with that road after that. and so they pulled us out, but they had another team on the helicopter that pulled us out that jumped off, and we jumped on, and they got shot out. And so they asked Moose and I, would we go back in there? And we said, sure. And we took another team in there, but now I can't remember, how do we get another team? Because people were covetous of their own teams. I think we had extra guys, and I don't. And
that's another thing that people need.
I even asked Moose, where did we find those guys? We took the team back in there. I know we did that, and I know it wasn't the same team that had quit. Who was it that we took back? He goes, I don't know. We had guys, man. He said, I don't remember. Of course, he had a brain tumor, and there's some stuff he can't remember at all.
And as I've started to learn from speaking to some of the older FOB2 vets and B50 Omega before it became the CCCs and all that, they were indicating just like that as well. And I just completely went blank on what we were talking about.
My memory.
My brain fart about composite teams. He was saying that, because I keep asking, I notice pictures of you with teams that aren't attributed to the teams that you ran with, and he's like, Well, teams would get hurt and all that, and you know, we ran composite teams. You know, Bob Howard would come out with me and would go out, and we just grab 3 Montagnards or whoever from the security or hatchet force company, and who wanted to go on a mission would go on a mission. So some teams just weren't the normal teams. So I've told people to watch out for that, and because some teams just aren't the normal teams.
Yeah, like I said, for the life of me, I can't remember how we rustled up other guys to go in with us, and how in the world would they have been gone, completely gone. Anyway, what else?
We'll have to get into bright light later. Infamous Georgia question. Was Georgia the snake around while you were at CCC? Any other pets kept around the compound?
Oh, I don't remember the snake. The only pet I remember,
Down south especially.
Maybe I shouldn't tell this out loud, but we had this. I don't remember Georgia the snake, but I do remember we had a shitload of dogs. I mean, it was an infestation of dogs, and so. And I get it, dogs are great for unconditional
wild.
love.
These were wild dogs. To preface everyone,
they
these were
wild
wild
dogs. They were dogs it started out, there was, the dogs that didn't get spayed that made it on compounds. And then, they'd have 8 or 9 puppies, and everybody would get a puppy, and, oh, I love my puppy. And then they'd go on a mission, and their fucking puppy is shitting all over the place. And, it was just a mess. But I took care of that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So to speak.
And CCS also had a collection. Y'all had monkeys. Y'all had more dogs. Y'all had.
I hated that shit, man. I hated that pet stuff. I remember there was a guy at Kontum that he was a new 1-1 for Pappy Webb, and he was a California guy. And so he went downtown and bought a parrot, and had the parrot in the room. And so he left one day and heard a gunshot down in Pappy's shack, and go in there, and there's blood, shit, and feathers everywhere. And Pappy had a .45 automatic and had a 1911 in his hand, and fucking shot the shit out of the parrot. The parrot was dead, and his new guy goes, you killed my parrot. He says, he attacked me. It was self-defense.
And
so yeah, I mean, the thing is that and I know, and everybody knows, everybody's listening knows that if you have a pet, you have to take care of it. You have a responsibility for it. If you're running missions, you can't do that. I mean, you can shift it off on your buddy, but and maybe that'll happen, and maybe it won't, and it begins to be a mess,
Just like with the dang monkey pooping all over everyone and everyone's stuff as well.
I killed that fucking monkey in CCS too. I hated that monkey.
That statute of limitations is long past on that one.
Well, the thing is, I carry Brandon.
Go ahead. I didn't want to interrupt you. I didn't want to interrupt.
No,
okay.
Fine, that's fine.
Did you carry a Browning?
A sidearm. I carried a. It depends. When I was on campus at FOB2, I carried a 380 Walter PPK small gun, and then in the field I carried that's it right there. Drunk. I'm not proud of that picture. drunk and armed. You see the old guy on the right? He's the only one that has any fucking sense. Nobody else is afraid.
One of my favorite pictures of you, sir.
So I carried him sawed-off M79.
A nice pirate gun.
More firepower.
Ooh, this is an interesting. Obviously, were you still in country during the August 23rd attack of CCN? And if you were, can you tell us about when you first heard of it?
Well, it was a big deal because up until that time, our compound sat on two sides of the road to between Pleiku and Kontum, and the NCO club and the Mountain Yard Barracks, except for Recon, were all on the one side of the road, and then our barracks and the Recon Mountain Yards and the headquarters and the Commo Shack was on the other side of the road. And so at night, what they would do is they'd pull a barrier across the road on either end of our compound, and then I think they had a French armored car they parked in the middle next to the front gate with a 50 caliber on it in between the road. But we weren't allowed to be armed in the club. And after CCN got hit, I knew somebody at CCN that was there, Ron Junling, good buddy of mine on the Halo detachment at Okinawa. He's a medic there. I've heard people say what a good job he did during that attack. So we, at that time, it was armed all the time, even in the club. It led to some, again, drunk and armed doesn't really work all that well, but it was like the fucking OK Corral.
I love it. Mr. Tony always never fails. I always love speaking with Mr. Tony. He's a straight shooter. They were right. It sounds like about don't fuck with these guys. Yeah, definitely don't fuck with the SOG, man. You got that right, James. Infantry door gunner who is an active vet. I've heard some veterans that sometimes there was a rift between SF guys that had served in traditional SF roles and those that served in the project, such as yourself. Did you notice any of that?
Yeah. I fostered it. No, when I was on the Halo detachment on Okinawa, that was something special, so I would like, and plus I was like really immature. Let's just play my cards on the table. I was just I was a fuck up, and as far as the Army was concerned, and I wasn't a very good soldier, if you know what I mean. I loved the SOG business. It was hell, it was the most exciting thing I've ever done in my entire life, and I've been kind of like searching for that high ever since. But there's nothing that compares to it. I'm not a warmonger or anything like that, but you go and listen. The North Vietnamese and the Viet Cong, they were fucking hell of a fighters, man, and they were no bullshit. It's not like you're fighting some quote unquote inferior force. Those guys knew what the fuck they were doing. They would come after your ass. They would get on you and try to get tight in on you, and they were trouble. And if we hadn't had air support, I just say it outright. If I hadn't had air support, I'd be dead. You wouldn't be talking to me today. So it was a hell of a time.
That's for damn sure. I mean,
nice to sit in the rocking chair and
be able to look back fondly
and check that box.
Whew. What a man! What a man! I'm sorry I missed this question, Cool Hand Luke. What month/year were your first mission? He means
my first mission was probably March or April in 1968. So
hot and heavy year.
Well, and we had monsoon season comes, I think, around in July-ish, and so there wasn't a lot. People had missions lined up to go, but a lot of them couldn't go, and some of them They got people in, and it's a hard time getting them out. So monsoon season presented its own special problems.
Yeah, we've heard some bad tales of guys getting immersion foot out there, not being able to get out of it being inserted during the monsoon mission. Did you notice, again, from infantry door gunner, notice any particular differences between recon at CCS versus CCC? Did you have to adjust tactics, procedures when operating in Cambodia versus Laos?
Yes. When we were operating in Laos, we could take up to 13 people, including the Americans. We would have fixed wing air support, whether it was A1Es, which I liked very much. They could stay on station a long time and carried a lot of ordnance, and they could put it in your back pocket if you need it. So you had, when I was running recon into Laotian targets, and even in the North Cambodian targets, I always knew that I could get some real strong air support on station, and they were going to be able to last a long time. I thought at Command and Control South, we had to be more conservative about getting in contact. It was, I always considered it a mistake if you made contact with the enemy. I always believed that if you can get in and out without them knowing you were there, it's better for you, better for everyone, because you have intelligence that they didn't know you have. And so when you make contact, they realize that you've got some information, and they can make changes. But if you lay up on the road and you count 52 East German deuce and a half trucks full of rice and stuff, a road that nobody knew was there, heavily armed guys walking up and down the road, and then you get out and they don't know that they know you're that you've been there. That's the best. That's just the best. So the difference is that you can get a lot more air support in at CCN and at CCC than you could at CCS, and it could stay on station longer. And so I'd say at CCS you had to be more judicious about what kind of trouble you got into. There were some guys that I don't know if they did this, but they would talk about it. They'd brag about it in the club. If they didn't make contact in 3 days, they'd start walking trails and shit like that. And that never interested me. I didn't like making contact. I like the fight. I like the fight after, but the making contact, I always thought, fuck that.
I can't remember if I showed that, but there's Mr. Mike, and I'm not familiar with the. Is that a lieutenant?
Oh, no, okay. I don't think he was lieutenant. I think he was a sergeant. Hank Hennis.
Was he recon?
Guy. He ran with an old country guy. I can't remember, Miller maybe. I don't remember his name.
Okay. Yeah. I was always curious about him. I haven't seen. I've been looking through Colonel Lindsay's book, trying to find a little bit about him, and I haven't been able to find much about him.
Yeah, he was a 1-1 for somebody, a guy named Miller, I think. I'm not quite sure. He was, when I say older guy, he was probably 30.
A pappy by then, y'all call him.
Yeah, call him pappy by the time he's 30. Got any stories of something funny happening? Okay, I'll tell this story. I tell a story. I used to tell a story self-effacing, because everything that happened was totally my fuck up. But this was at CCS. Moose, our team leader Moose was sick. I don't remember what it was. He had malaria, injured. I don't remember what it was, but I was the 1-0, and Mike Pelaez and I were going in on I think it's just an area recon. And so we go in the first day, thick jungle, Cambodia target, 6 guys, me and Mike in 4 yards. Go in the first day, thought we had trackers. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure we had trackers. So we were like moving in this zigzag pattern, trying to, if we did have trackers, loop back on them. And so didn't get any action first day. We find a RON site, spend the night that night. So we've been going all day. And so we sleep in a circle. You just kind of loosen your web gear. The way I did it, my rule was travel light and sleep cold at night. So I had a plastic blanket. It wasn't a blanket. You can't even call it a blanket. A plastic sheet that I put down on the ground underneath me to keep any critters from crawling from the ground on me. And I had a plastic sheet that I put on top of me. You loosen your web gear. You kind of scoot down with your backpack and you lay your head back on it and you sleep like that. So it's kind of a sitting up sleeping. And we'd hold hands, in a circle, hold hands. And so you have your guard out, you take an hour for guard and you stay awake that hour. And then when it's the next guy's turn, you squeeze a hand to your left and they would wake up. And then they'd do their hour of guard. And then if something happens, you just squeeze both hands on either side of you, and that goes around the circle. Everybody wakes up. So pre-dawn, I had the last watch. Starts getting light. I squeeze everybody's hand. We're all kind of like groaning and moaning and getting up in our web gear and stuff. And Mike Pelaez was laying to my right, and I had a sawed-off M79 in a antenna bag. And the reason I was able to get this weapon was because the safety on it wasn't working, and they were going to junk it. So I said, well, Lynn, give that to me. I'll saw it off. I'll make a pistol out of it. I'll take a piece of tape and tape the safety back so the safety will stay on. And so they gave it to me. So I sawed it off and made a pistol out of it. And I used to carry it in an antenna bag. So I had a canteen cover full of different types of rounds. I would carry in it. I would carry a canister round, which was more like a shotgun shell. Had a plastic wad and a bunch of ball bearings in it, And then so I used that for first contact. And then I had high explosive rounds, a couple of those at least, maybe 3. I had a CS tear gas round. I think I might even have had a white phosphorus round. I think I did have a white phosphorus round. Anyway, like that. I had all that in a canteen cover. And so wake everybody up. I get up in my my gear and I shove myself up like that. Boom, an explosion. Fucking dirt kicks up next to my feet. I flop over, drop my weapon off safe. I'm looking, what the fuck happened? What the fuck? Look, then I thought maybe, well, somebody's weapon went off. So I looked at the tape on the end of my weapon. My weapon was gone. Looked at, I pointed at all the mount yards. Everybody's like, no. And then I looked at Pelaez, and he's flopping around on the ground next to me. So what's wrong, Pelaez? He said, you shot my fucking foot off. So I looked down at the antenna bag, and that thing's like peeled back like a banana. It's like there's nothing left of that thing. And in the top of his jungle boot, you could see the plastic wad that was from the canister round, and it was stuck right in the, right in the top of his boot. And then I took I had a K-bar knife, so I took my K-bar knife and I sliced his boot off, pulled the canister round off, and so if this is his foot, he had this toe was hanging on by a thread. He had a ball that had gone through the top of his foot here, one that had gone through near his big toe, and then maybe one somewhere around his middle toe. Actually, pretty lucky.
Yeah.
Considering.
Yes, sir.
So that his index toe was hanging. I'll call it his index toe. His index toe was like hanging on by a thread. So I just took my fucking my knife, fucking sliced that motherfucker off. So now this is when it gets stupid. This is when I get real stupid. So I hold his toe up, and I show it to Pelaez. And I say, "Finny one toe, Pelaez." And so he turns white as a fucking sheet. So I go, "Oh my God, he's going into shock," and so that can't be good. And I decided I'm going to give him some morphine because he was in a lot of pain. Anybody, if you ever had your toe hit with a hammer or anything like that, you know how painful that shit is. So I gave him a half a syringe of morphine because I don't want him to get too screwed up because we got to get, we thought we had trackers. We got to get the fuck out of here at some point. So it was still before Cubby was up, and then I start putting the guys out on security, and so put a bandage on his foot, I think, and then he got high and he started like messing around with the mount, goofing around with the mount yards, and I was like, that was pissing me off. He says the story, says, all I remember is you were really mad at me. You shot my toe off and you were really mad at me. So he gets high and he starts, and he's euphoric. And I'm like in a freaking panic thinking, what the fuck are we going to do? So finally we get Covey up, tell him we want the hell out of there. So I said, okay, Pelaez. So we got Covey around. We got air coming in to pick us up off. He showed us an LZ, which was about 25 meters away from where we were. So told us to start moving there. So I told Pelaez, give me your weapon and I'll give it to one of the yards and your pack. And he wasn't giving up any of that stuff. No, not getting my weapon. Come on, Pelaez. So I got to carry you. You can't fucking walk. I can walk. So I said, okay, all right. We got to move 25 meters to this freaking LZ. You can walk. Let's fucking go. So we started out, and he's jumping up and down on one foot. Fucking cack pads are falling out of his pockets, and fuck you. I said, give me your fucking gun, Pelaez. So he gives me his fucking gun. I grab his gun, get it away from him. I give it to one of the yards. Empty his fucking pockets, and I put all his stuff in my pocket, and then I do a fireman's carry over my shoulder. And so he said, don't hit my foot. Don't hit my foot. I said, okay, man, I won't hit your foot. So we're moving through the jungle, and I'm like, I'm actually aiming down his leg, so I is aiming his foot away from anything that I can see his foot's gonna hit. So I'm like walking through the woods and behind me, I could hear his head conking on trees. Bonk, bonk, bonk. So, oh man, this is why I say I'm better being a 1-1 than a 1-0. So anyway, so we get to the LZ. They drop a medevac chopper down first, and I think Quackenbush was on that thing. But anyway, that was August of 1969. So I threw Pelaez on that medevac chopper, and I said, "Hey, Pelaez, write me up for a soldier's medal for carrying you to the LZ." He said, "Fuck you." It flew off. And I didn't see him again until 2019 at the SOAR reunion, my last SOAR reunion. Yeah, wow. Man. Yeah, I used to tell that story. I used to ham it up because I thought it was funny. But then in 2019, I actually saw the foot, and he actually lost another toe. And I thought, that's not so funny. But totally, it was like I was the head Keystone Cop in a big comedy of errors. So if I don't know if that's funny or not, but it was funny for a while.
You're definitely getting some laughings in the comment, and I've actually got you and Mike sent me a photo from SOAR of his foot, and I might show it. Although Instagram got onto me last time for showing body mutilation, even though I preface it as a history post. But
that's my field surgery, man.
Absolutely, I was saying that's an amateur Mac V Sog doctor at work here. So I'm going to try and get that out to y'all so y'all can see that. But here's a good question. I'm always interested about this one. I'm glad someone asked. And if I can't find it, I already know what it is. He's asking about, did you have any interactions with any insects, animals, tigers, anything of the sorts?
I hated the worst thing I hated was the critters, man. They were critters like scorpions as big as your freaking hand.
There it is. Yep, snakes and other wildlife.
Yeah, there were centipedes as big as your arm, big as your forearm. I remember one time we were. I think this is with Don Davidson. I was running a target with Don Davidson. We were coming up to a clearing, and the point man started jumping around and get down and be still and all that kind of stuff. We all froze, and right through the clearing, an elephant walks by. Holy shit. Scorpions and ants with heads as big as, the grab onto your leeches.
The leeches.
Stuff, man. I hate the leeches were the worst. It's just, a lot of bad critters in Vietnam, man, and poisonous snakes as well. Although I didn't see too many of those.
Not just having to face the NVA out there. You've got some dangerous wildlife out there. Were there any fist fights between Recon men and Remps while you were around?
Yeah. Well, there were fist fights between Recon men and Recon men. Yeah, there was always a fight breaking out. I used to use RIMF a lot, and I was in a chat room one time, Vietnam history chat room, and I was telling a story about. I think I was on my way to R&R when TET 68 hit, and a lot of the guys, which I call rims, had their carbines still in the bag, and they were ripping the bag open and trying to load magazines and stuff. And they call them rims. And some administrative guy, not a group admin, but a guy that was in administration, called me on it, and so now I'm of the mind that we all were doing our part. So we certainly had that prejudice back then, and it was the language of the time. Yeah, there was always fights happening. I mean, my favorite technique was to drop my drink, and when the glass broke on the floor, they would always look down and be met with the uppercut.
Perfect move. I've heard a few of the more notorious RIMP fights where Intel guys calling Intel guys calling the recon men liars and not believing their intel, and that was met with a fist of furies on numerous occasions. So yeah, it definitely happened. Did you happen to meet Bubba the Tiger at FOB too?
Nope.
No. I don't remember. I've seen pictures and he was there, but I honestly don't. He was there when Warren Castanera was there, but I can't remember how long he was there, to be honest.
No, we didn't have a Tiger when I was there.
Oh, Jason, what was the closest you got to the enemy without him knowing you were there, and what do you think the closest you've been to the enemy?
Arm's reach, buddy. Yeah, arm's reach. I mean, when I speak of that road, we were right up on that road, and they were walking right by us. Well, we put one man up on the road, and I remember laying there, and those guys were walking right by me. I could reach out and trip one if I wanted to. I couldn't move. I had to piss in my pants. Close. That's good shit, man. That's when you can do that. When you can get in, that's what I tell my therapist. I'm not paranoid, dude. I know people can sneak up on you and do nasty shit to you because I've been there and I've done that. It's like I'm not paranoid.
That's some recon. Did you happen to be in Cambodia on this operation?
Yeah,
or was that
was a CCS mission. I think I have to classify that as our best mission, and it would have been even better if our mountain yards hadn't quit on us. But they were probably right. I mean, they lived there. They were really jungle experts, and they were good jungle fighters, and and they were probably smarter than we were. And we probably should have listened to them, but at the time it pissed us off. We got them back to base, fired every fucking one of them.
Wow, that's man. It's and CCS is reading through Colonel Lindsay's book and him comparing everything. CCS was very good about staying on the ground and actually getting recon missions taken care of. I think the longest without being weather disposed, actually running recon. I think the longest two were CCS missions, and they were both almost 13 and 14 days long. I mean, they were out there forever counting trucks, and I think they may have found a gas storage area, but CCS definitely did their work on the ground. Did you have any missions to pick up cameras from drones or anything like Witch Doctor or Blue Streak that needed to be recovered?
No. Closest I had did anything like that is I had a wiretap mission that didn't go off, but I remember the machine we had was about the size of a briefcase. I understand later on they had smaller stuff, but I'm glad that mission didn't go. I didn't look forward to that.
Yeah, hearing some of the guys talk about the wiretaps, those could be very, very, especially once they finally realize you've clipped on and are listening to you. That very, very scary. What was the largest team you took on a mission, and what was the smallest? What would be the reason to change the size of the team?
Small team would be 6. Now, when you get out there, when you get on a mission, you may split that up for security reasons. You may go down, like when we went for the prisoner snatch, we left some of the team in security, and 3 of us went down to do the prisoner snatch. So you can split the team and say that, oh, we had a team of 3 and 3, but team of 6 is the smallest team I've ever taken on a mission, and the largest team was 12. Yeah.
Wow.
And that was 3 Americans and 9 mountain yards. I think Iowa was a mixed team, so we had some Chinese nuns, we had Vietnamese, we had mountain yards.
Wow. And Iowa was historic, along with Dick Meadows and Ohio. Miss Gerald Waring, I think he was a snakebite man with you. He ran Iowa for a while, and he was quite the POW grabber across the fence.
Yeah, Jerry Waring. When I met him, he was a captain. He was the man in charge of the snakebite team. He ran the whole snakebite deal. Okay. Matter of fact, that picture, he's the guy sitting out front.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
So that was Jerry Waring. I only met and knew him for a short time, but he had quite a reputation.
Absolutely. This is a good question, and it actually could lead into your infamous bright light that didn't come to, but I'm sure you've got some more to talk about. We've heard that bright lights were the most dangerous because the enemy knew you were coming. Could you talk about what it was like to be on a bright light duty when a call came in?
I didn't go on that many bright lights. They were always considered dangerous because you know that you wouldn't be going in there unless somebody had, you don't go on a bright light because nothing happened. You go into a bright light because the team got in trouble. So you're going in with to get into a fight, and so you prepare differently. You have more ammo. You're not prepared to stay a long time, but you prepare differently than you would like a regular mission. There was a bright light that I was supposed to be on. This is an interesting story because I had completely forgotten about this, because to me it was a mission that we were supposed to go on that never happened, that didn't go. So I completely had forgotten about it. But a few years back, maybe 8 or 9 years ago, Robert Dumont was interviewing me for a history book he was working on, and his father-in-law is George Hunt, who's famous in and of himself. But George had, there you go. George, there was a team in trouble. And so Robert Dumont knew this story, and he said, do you remember the suicide mission you were going on with George? And I go, I don't remember that. And he goes, well, George remembers it. And he said that, so the story was that George had a brand new 1-1, no combat experience, straight from Fort Bragg. And he had to do a bright light with a team that was in trouble. And so what they planned to do was reinforce the team by bringing in more ammo, more firepower, and that kind of thing, and see if you can get them out the next morning. So this is the last light kind of thing. And so Hunt couldn't take his new guy in, so there was they gathered us all around, all the recon guys in a circle, and said, Hunt said, I got this bright light, team in trouble, can't take my 1-0. I need a volunteer to go in with me as a 1-1. So I said, sure, I'll go. What the hell? And so I volunteered to go with him. And so I geared up, packed up, got on the choppers and went to Pleiku, and then went to the launch site, which I think was out of an A-team close to the border. And then we were ready to go. So we were in the helicopters on our way to the target, and they got the team out somehow. And so for me, it was a mission that didn't go. So I'd forgotten about it. But George, who was the 1-0, he was thinking it was a suicide mission, and it probably was. And in his mind, he said he remembered looking at my face and thinking, that's the last American face I'm ever going to see in my life. I saw him at the SOAR 19. I said, that's not too bad. Look at my face. My face be the last face you see. So anyway, that was a suicide mission. Yeah, there we are. Yeah, I hear he's not doing so well. But, we're all getting old, man. We're dying like flies.
He is he's like you said, he is another one of those legendary recon men. He's a heck of a guy, and for you to step up like that, not knowing what's going on, and literally, and it mentions in the book, guys, that mission is written heavily about in Stephen Moore's book, Uncommon Valor. And Mr. Hunt says he had no idea why Tony would step up like this without knowing any of the guys and knowing it was going to be a suicide mission, and instantly had respect out the yin yang for him after that. But he also said in the book he was glad that they didn't have to go in and the team was recovered, because it was going to get nasty, like Tony said. Did you ever participate in any PSYOP operations, delivery of special ammo, i.e. eldest son?
No, but I was with the guy that worked on that eldest son business down at CCS. No, I didn't involve in any of that. No.
Ooh, since we were just talking about knives, this will tie in perfectly. Did you carry a survival type knife?
I carried a K-bar. Still have
another. Wow, that is the third SOG man we've spoken to that went with the K-bar. One had a SOG knife and didn't like it too much, kept it as keepsake, and went right to the K-bar.
Man, I tell you, I did not like the SOG knife. I don't know why. I can't remember exactly why, but I remember when I left CCS, there were 5 of them in a drawer. I just threw them in the garbage can. Man, I wish I had those now. Yeah.
I was about to say you could make a good house payment with selling all those off. Oh wow, we've got these last few questions. We've got since we're already over 2 hours. My goodness.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to pee pretty soon. So
we've got 3 more questions, sir. I already told the guys we were gonna shut it down till part 2. What did you think of the invasion of Cambodia by conventional forces? Was it the right move? Should it have been done sooner or more extensively?
I think it's hard for me to think of it in the large historical context, because I used to have a T-shirt that said, participant Southeast War Games, second place. I
Too
can
little,
only
too
get,
late.
I can only give an ignorant answer to that question. I don't know much about it in terms of did it help or did it. I left Vietnam in September of '69, and I just kind of went on after that and didn't think about it much. It was kind of a political issue. I did notice from the time that I was in my first tour in SOG and my second tour in SOG, we were saying things like, we're losing this shit, because it seemed to me that the missions I ran at CCS, the NVA was better equipped, they were more organized than they were the guys that I saw when I was running recon at FOB2. So it looked to me like we were losing in '69, and evidently historically we probably were. So yeah, that would be a question I would just be spouting off an opinion, and it would be not based on much meat.
Too little, too late. And I think if they would have kept, like the other SOG vets have gotten into a little bit, if they would have kept it a SF war or a full-on SOG war the entire time, it possibly could have gone different. But, that's Monday morning quarterbacking things. I ask this with all due love and respect. You got into this. What's your opinion on the result of the war?
I won't be popular for this, but it was we lost, man. I justify it in my mind that what I did there saved American lives, and so I can take some comfort in that. But it was I don't think we should have ever been there. I think it was a mistake, a waste of blood and treasure. Not gonna make me popular with my guys.
There's a lot of guys that think that way. My dad is a Marine grunt, fully thought that same way. Thoughts on modern guys in SF?
All I can say is they look like they're way better trained than I was. The equipment stuff. I haven't had any contact with. And I might have met somebody at an airport or something. I'm the commander of ODA something, but I have no idea how they operate these days. They sure look good, and they look professional, and they do. I'm sure they're always in the fight, because that's what we do.
And it looks like, we've got two little short ones, and then that'll be it for the day, sir. Did you have any run-in with anyone from the CIA?
Not that I know of.
Not that he knows of. All right. This is interesting. Any superstitious moments with your yards or warnings about anything in the field?
Well,
they were always superstitious about something.
No, they had their. I'm having trouble answering the question because I wasn't that at the time. Okay, I grew up in segregated Georgia. I had a lot of racism in me. It's the stuff you learn when no one's teaching. I didn't view them as kind of, they were mercenaries, and they didn't, they were getting paid to be soldiers, and so I didn't see them. I didn't hold them in the high esteem they should have been held in, and but they were hell of a jungle fighters. I'm sorry I wasted a an opportunity to learn more about them and be more appreciative of them. But at the time, I have to say that I didn't think of them as, thought of them more like a weapon.
Well, I mean, at 20 years old, and that's what you were there to do, fight, and sometimes that the surviving and taking care of yourself is more, I hate to say it, more important than noticing indigenous tribe rituals and stuff like that, so to speak. But it's
I was curious, but I was not curious enough to be interested or ask questions.
yeah.
They were strange. Let's just,
Mm-hmm.
they were strange peoples to me.
Absolutely, absolutely, and there were some guys that have written books now that did. I'll get some out, guys, that talks about their experiences and really gets into the yards and all the different tribes and their superstitions that y'all ask about, and I'll get that out for y'all. That this guy did a whole PhD review on, so I'll get that out for y'all. It's fairly interesting. But Mr. Tony, we've had you here for coming up on 2.5 hours. Would you like to say anything else before we close out today?
I appreciate you, Bud. I thank you very much for allowing me the opportunity to share, and let's do it again sometime. And thank you all, whoever's watching. I really appreciate you watching. Thank you very much.
We thank you for coming on, and we would most definitely take you up on your offer to come back for a part 2. People are already saying thank yous, and I'll definitely work it out to where we can have you back on. And all you have to do is hit the little leave studio, and that'll wrap it up for the day. And I'll touch base with you this afternoon, and we'll chit chat a bit.
Okay. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Good. See you later. Wow. What a great show, guys. What a great show. I'll get all these thank yous to him. That was a heck of a guy. Mr. Tony is awesome. I hope now that y'all see how open he is and how off the cuff, and he'll tell you what he thinks. That's what I love about Mr. Tony. I hope y'all will get ready for part 2. And if y'all have any of these questions that y'all don't feel like are okay to ask other SOGmen or anything like that, i.e. smoking, women, partying and stuff like that. Daniel, I didn't get to your question. I just noticed that, and I'm sorry. I'll ask him personally that, and I'll get you that answer about practical jokes. I apologize. But I hope y'all can get some questions together for when he comes back and joins us. Keep an eye out. I've got to talk to Leon Sonnenberg, CCS and CCN vet, who went to El Salvador to see about tomorrow, if we're going to go on tomorrow or not. But we had a great show. I think we had 35 going at one point in time, actively commenting. So y'all knocked it out of the park again. I hope y'all enjoyed Mr. Tony. Mr. Tony is one of my favorite men. Like I said, he's literally the first person I ever spoke to. I'll be putting this up with my other history stuff, and there's stuff we didn't even get into. This is a handwritten after action play-by-play that he wrote with the help of Moose Gross and Mike from RT TACK from his CCS mission, and it is one heck of a mission. So we've got several stuff, good things that we didn't get into that I was wanting to save for a part 2 to get him back on. It's gonna be great. Oh, great, Scott. I'm glad you were able to listen. It's great. Oh yeah, Daniel, we'll take care of it, brother. We'll make sure. Thanks, James. I'm glad you were able to participate, man. You've been asking some really good questions the past few streams. Really good stuff, man. All of y'all, Lone Wolf, I'm glad you've joined us from now on and asking such good questions. Jason, always good questions as usual. Zero Mike Foxtrot. I keep messing it up. Infantry, designated marksman rifle. Awesome stuff, man. Always appreciate you helping out and participating. Cool Hand Luke, glad to see you joining us for good. James is in here with us now. That's great. Y'all keep an eye out. Next month is going to be Marine and Air Crew month. and still an occasional SOG man mixed up. But it looks like to end and start the month, we could possibly have Leon tomorrow, and on Friday we might could possibly have the 46 Special Forces Group member and Delta Force member Philip Hansen. I will keep you all abreast on that. But the soonest one we'll have could possibly be tomorrow with Leon Sonnenberg. I will keep you all updated, and thank y'all so much for spending 2.5 hours with me and Tony today. Well, actually, Tony. So thank y'all. And I'll be in touch with my boys here in a little while. Y'all be good, and have a good rest of y'all's Tuesday. Awesome. See y'all.